Welcome to this peaceful moment. A place where you can slow down, breathe, and let your body relax. Take a deep breath in and let it go slowly. Feel the tension begin to fade, little by little. I'm glad you're here, and if you enjoy this kind of calming content, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next sessions. Now, let's begin our journey into relaxation and calm. On a deep, shadowed evening, nearly 50,000 years ago, when Europe was covered by harsh icy plains and dense, tangled pine forests, two kinds of humans shared the land. The Neanderthals, strong-bodied with thick muscles, and the newly arrived Homo sapiens, still learning the ways to survive on this continent. Their encounters were rare and often marked by caution, but that era witnessed moments of humanity rarely told, one of which was about to be buried beneath layers of time. Had its remnants not remained alive in the bones of unknown, long-buried individuals? In that time, Neanderthals lived in small, closely knit groups, relying on collective hunting and sheltering near their dwellings during storms. One of them, reconstructed by scientists from skeletal evidence, was called Garon, a young, strong man, short in stature compared to Homo sapiens, yet broad-shouldered, with hands stronger than those of humans today. Garon was responsible for gathering firewood and tracking animal signs before the hunters set out. On one particularly harsh night, as fog swallowed the forest edges, a strange sound reached his ears. It was neither the growl of an animal nor the creak of snow-laden branches. It resembled a long groan, like the cry of a desperate being. At first, he hesitated. Approaching an unknown source at night could mean facing a cave bear or a saber-toothed cat. Yet something compelled him to continue, perhaps an instinctive curiosity, or perhaps the sense that the sound did not belong to a predator. He advanced cautiously, holding a short spear. When he reached the edge of a rocky depression, he saw a body lying in the snow, taller than himself, thinner, and with facial features entirely different. A pronounced chin, a high forehead, and wide, weary eyes staring unfocused. It was a Homo sapiens, one of the newcomers whose traces had begun appearing along riverbanks only a few seasons before. The man had suffered a severe injury to his leg, perhaps from a fall or an animal attack. The blood had frozen along the wound's edges, yet he was still alive. Garon felt no urge to flee. He knelt, examined the body, realizing that the cold alone would kill it before any other threat. A long silence stretched between them. No language, no shared history. Just two beings exposed to the same vulnerability before nature. When the man tried to raise his hand in plea, Garon made his decision. He lifted the man onto his back, despite his height and weight, and moved slowly toward his group's shelter. The physical burden was one challenge. The fear of his tribe's reaction was another. Homo sapiens were potential competitors, strangers, perhaps even threats. Yet he continued. When he reached the cave, the group halted in astonishment. Fire burned at the center, and the scent of roasting meat filled the air. The tribe's elder approached Garin, pounding his chest with heavy reprimands at the audacity, but upon seeing the wounded man, noting the feeble breaths and the imminent threat of death, he paused. Neanderthals shared the responsibility of survival. They cared for their sick for many years, as studies have shown. So despite their hesitation, there was no justification to leave a man dying in the snow. They yielded to a value older than enmity, the value of life. The wound was dressed with herbs mixed with animal fat, and the man was placed near the fire. Over the following weeks, he learned to read their faces and signals, while they watched his recovery with patience, as if tending one of their own children. He observed their precise hunting methods and tightly organized social structure for the first time in a long while. He felt safe in return. He offered them something invaluable: knowledge. He used stone tools of more advanced techniques, could ignite fire in ways unfamiliar to them, and crafted small flint blades that impressed Garin. Gradually, he was treated as one of them, despite his different features and the fact that he never spoke a word of their language. After months, when his leg had fully healed, the day came for the man to leave. Winter had passed. Rivers were freeing themselves from ice. Garin presented him with a short spear he had made, while the man gave the Neanderthals a sharp flint blade of a style they had never seen. They exchanged the same silent smile all humans share, a smile of gratitude. The man headed toward the horizon where his own group resided, yet he kept glancing back at the cave. His heart was caught between two worlds. They had saved him, those he once considered different, perhaps inferior, and he knew that moment would echo through the generations yet to come. Thousands of years later, scientists would discover the remains of a man who had lived among two distinct human groups. His bones would show signs of healing from a severe wound, and beside him would lie blades combining techniques of both Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. Neither his nor Garin's real names would be known, but their story remained etched in flint and bone, a testimony that survival in that era was not based solely on strength, but on rare acts of compassion in an unforgiving world. Thus, the Earth memorialized a single act of rescue, small in its moment, vast in its consequence, the day a Neanderthal saved a giant man, bridging two worlds that did not yet realize their futures would diverge, yet in that brief moment were one. The Homo sapiens walked away from the cave, leaning on his new wooden staff, as the cold breeze carried the scent of melting ice from the hillsides. He hadn't gone far before he realized he missed the voices of those he had lived among for months. He had learned their habits, the faint laughter resembling the rumble of a small stone rolling, their shy gratitude, and their precise way of dividing meat among the group. He saw in them something unexpected, a humanity similar to that of his own tribe, yet more primal, closer to nature itself. During his journey, he recalled nights spent in the cave, watching Garin by the fire, staring at the flames as if understanding something within him words could not express. They communicated through gestures, through eyes, through a mysterious language that, in that era, was perhaps the closest thing to truth. After 2 days of walking, he encountered footprints of relatively modern humans, light, spaced steps, resembling those of his tribe. His heart leapt. He had finally reached familiar territory. But before calling out, he caught a faint scent of smoke. Not the old, cold fire, but a small, live flame. Cautiously, he approached, hiding behind thick bushes. There, on the half-frozen riverbank, were his tribe, or what remained of them, no more than 20, their faces exhausted, their leather clothes torn. They had endured a harsh winter, scarcer animals, weaker shelters, perhaps conflicts with other groups. A child saw him first. A small boy weaving a rudimentary net from plant fibers. His eyes widened, and the bundle fell from his hands. He called out in a trembling voice, and the tribe gathered around the man returning from death. The moment was silent, then erupted with amazement and joy. His mother held him, unable to believe he was alive. The tribe's leader, a tall, thin man with a sharp gaze, inspected the wound that had nearly killed him. They had assumed he would not survive. Yet here he was, with a strange spear and flint blades unlike anything they had known. He sat among them, explaining with gestures and drawings in the dirt what had happened. The short, strong man carrying the taller one, the cave, the fire, the hand giving him food. The half-carved bone bead one elder Neanderthal had worn as a sign of affection. His people stared in astonishment. They had never imagined that such strong, differently built beings could show compassion to a stranger. Days passed, and the tribe gradually realized the man had changed. He had returned with new skills, collective hunting techniques learned from Neanderthals, faster, more stable fire lighting methods, use of animal fat for insulation, and reshaping blades in unfamiliar ways. Gradually, the tribe relied on this knowledge for survival in the next hunting season. Yet the Neanderthal influence did not end there. The man felt the help he received could not remain unreciprocated. He knew his tribe would not survive another harsh winter alone. The ice grew fiercer. Prey fled south, and unknown peoples appeared on the horizon. One night, sitting alone by the fire, he stared at the sparks, recalling Garen's face, the way he pushed snow away from the cave opening to protect the smoke, the elder's reassuring hand on his shoulder, and the children's gaze. They had never seen him as a stranger, but as a guest in need of care. decided he would return to them when he told his tribe of his plan. They were divided. Some feared the Neanderthals' reaction. Others thought it madness to go back after surviving, but he remained resolute, using gestures and drawings to convey that the bond between humans, regardless of form, was stronger than anything that divided them. After 2 days of preparation, he set out with 3 trusted companions. They walked across the white plains, following the rock markers until they finally reached the familiar rocky entrance. This time, however, the sounds inside were not of life. The place was eerily silent. He stepped forward and called in the learned manner, but there was no reply. Inside, he found remnants of a fire, a half-carved bone, and a pile of animal hides, seemingly left in haste. It appeared as though they had fled suddenly. While inspecting the place, he found something chilling, a massive footprint in the fresh snow outside, the print of a cave bear. He recoiled in shock. Realizing the attack was recent, he ran into the valley where Garen used to gather wood. Among the trees, he found a dark stain of blood, but no body, perhaps dragged away by animals. There was, however, something else. A broken bone bead, halved, the same bead one elder had always worn. He knelt, holding the bead in his hands, feeling something inside break. They had saved him, secured a foothold for his life. Yet time had not waited for them. Slowly, he stood, eyes filled with unspoken sorrow. He gestured to his companions to return, but he himself was changed. He now bore a larger responsibility to protect the wisdom of those who had devoted their lives to survival without ever having the chance to tell their story. Upon returning to his tribe, he recounted what he had seen and buried the bead with them as a symbol of a new covenant. From that point on, his tribe adopted some Neanderthal rituals in respect, placing bones near the fire, watching the moon as a companion, not merely as a light in the night. Over generations, Neanderthal traces disappeared from the land, but their mark on the hearts of survivors remained, their ideas intertwined with those of Homo sapiens, passing through time as remnants of a people not entirely erased, but living within the empathy of those they had touched. Thus, the story of that rescue spanned thousands of years. It was not just an individual event, but a hidden connection between 2 peoples. The day a Neanderthal saved a giant man became the first thread in a long, unseen chain linking past to future, a delicate thread that reminded humanity that its beginning was not in constant war, but in a moment of mercy on a cold night, a moment that made this world possible. Spring returned slowly that year, hesitating to touch the land that had witnessed the departure of those unknown to history. In the heart of the Homo sapiens who carried the half-broken bead back to his tribe, the world was no longer the same. He understood that what he had witnessed in the Neanderthal cave was not merely a personal survival event, but a window into another form of humanity, a form whose bodies vanished. yet remained imprinted in the memory of those who came after. Years passed after that incident, yet the presence of the Neanderthals never left the man, nor the lives of the tribe that had embraced his story. His group began to adopt their ways more deeply, collective hunting in precise circles, building shelters from heavy stones instead of weak poles, and even decorating their bodies with lines of charcoal and crushed bone, a ritual he had observed over countless nights by the cave fire when they celebrated the hunter's return. Over time, the children who had never seen a Neanderthal began to repeat stories of the kind giants living in the mountains, tending fires as though they were part of them. The man listened to these tales with a bittersweet smile. He knew the truth. Those giants were no longer there, and the mountains children imagined were only links between two worlds. The mountains no longer held anything but silence. Yet the story did not end there. With the passing of tens of seasons, other changes appeared in nature. Ice slowly retreated, animal numbers increased, and new human groups began to appear. Some were friendly, others fierce in competition for territory. The world was changing, and a new era was approaching. On one exploratory journey, more than 10 seasons after his rescue, the man discovered something strange near a northern river, the remains of another small cave, smaller than the one he had lived in, but unmistakably bearing traces of Neanderthal presence. A notched stone, remnants of a primitive hearth, a tiny leather covering as if for an infant. He realized that some of them might have survived the bear attack. Or perhaps this was another group he had never known. He rushed to the cave, but found only traces on the walls, black lines drawn in charcoal. Perhaps the fingers of a small child learning to draw thousands of years ago. He sat on the ground, running his fingers over the marks left by hands that no longer existed. It felt like a covenant, an oath to preserve whatever remained of them, however small. He gathered some tools, buried others where animals would not find them, trying, in his primitive way, to safeguard the memory of a people whose names and language were unknown to him, but whose hearts he had known. In the following years, his tribe grew. Children became adults, and they continued to tell the story of the man saved by Neanderthals, adding imaginative details he did not mind. He knew that stories were what gave people their roots. One evening, when the man had grown old and his hair turned white, he sat by the fire with a group of children around him. They wanted to hear the story one last time. Their faces glowed in the firelight, like the faces of the children who had witnessed him rise from near death in his youth. He told them quietly, almost tearfully, how Garin had lifted him onto his back despite his weight, how they had shared their food, how he had learned from their elder, and how he returned to find the cave silent. When he reached the moment of discovering the broken bead, everyone fell silent, as if the very air had stopped out of respect. When he finished, silence reigned. Even the fire seemed to quiet down, listening. Then a small child stepped forward, not yet born when the events occurred. The child sat beside him, holding a small piece of bone he was carving, and offered it to the man, saying softly, "We will not forget." That night, the man looked up at the sky. The stars shone brightly, forming a distant path across time. He imagined Garon, his elders, women, and children walking that path, not extinct, but immortal in memory. Years later, when the man himself passed away, he was found lying near the fire, the half-broken bead on his chest, and a small string of bones he had crafted at the end of his life. His tribe understood then that he wished to leave the world carrying the memory of those who had saved him, to pass on their impact in turn. Millennia later, the wind buried the caves and plains. The landscape changed. But the story, the origin story, passed down through generations, transformed into legend, then distant memory. When modern scientists arrived, they found the remains of a Homo sapiens carrying a unique bead unlike anything his people were accustomed to, with bones showing signs of an old wound healed in an unusual way. No one knew his name, nor the name of his rescuer. Yet they understood one truth. Humanity did not begin with conflict, but with a moment of mercy on a harsh night, when a Neanderthal bent over a stranger, lifted him onto his back, and set in motion a chain of actions that would reach, improbably, to our present day. And so, the story continued longer than any of them lived, testifying that what remains of humans is not bones nor tools, but the impact they leave in the hearts of others, even if that impact is merely a hand extended to save a stranger in a time that knew little mercy. Centuries passed. The land swallowed the traces of ancient tribes as a mother swallows the memories of grown children. Yet the story never died. It traveled as whispers across time, told in different forms, its details shifting, but its essence remained. That someone, on a stormy night, lifted another human onto his back, and in doing so, changed the course of history without knowing it. Tens of thousands of years after the Homo sapiens left, new humans arrived in those European plains. They cut forests to build huts, dug the earth to bury their dead, and lit fires as their ancestors had. One season, a hunter in a small village found a strangely shaped stone near a dry river bank. At first, he thought it was an ordinary flint, but when he turned it over, he felt its finely polished edge, a thin blade blending two different crafting styles. He did not understand its meaning, but brought it to the village elders. An elder, inspecting the lines etched along its side, said, "This was not made by our ancestors. It came from another time." No one knew how the stone reached them. Yet the ancient hospitality of the village made them treat the piece as sacred, placing it near newborns, as though blessing their future with the spirit of two peoples who had once merged for a moment and then vanished. They did not know that the stone was crafted by the man after returning from the Neanderthal cave, carrying a fragment of Garen's memory. It passed from hand to hand, generation to generation, eventually buried by the winds under layers of silt, forgotten by tongue. Then came another age, stone cities and bronze swords, when myths were written on animal hides and hung in temples. An old priest, fond of collecting tales from travelers, heard a strange story one night. Unlike any other, it told there was a people of kind giants in the mountains. They did not speak as we do, but their hearts were broader than their stones. One night, they saved a lost man in the snow. They carried him to their cave, treated him, and when he recovered, he returned to his people to tell what he had seen. From that day, humans learned that mercy was stronger than fire itself. The priest recorded the story on a deer hide and placed it in the temple library. He did not know it was not a fable, but a faint memory of a true event, thousands of years earlier, when two human species shared the same land and learned the secret of survival from one another. Over the decades, archaeologists began finding scattered evidence of a remarkable intermingling between two prehistoric cultures. Flint blades unlike those of Homo sapiens, yet unlike Neanderthal tools. Something in between, a creation born from unexpected cooperation between the two species.